kia ora tātou, no mai, hoki mai, and welcome back to Showy Ovaries, a podcast where I, the proud owner of a 1-year-old podcast, Penny Ashton, attempt to delve down deep under the fleshy covers of the gynecological gyrations known as menopause. A quick reminder, as always, that I am not a doctor. I am just not a doctor, and as this is my 59th podcast, I have run out of segue ideas. So I'm just not a doctor. Deal with it. But if you want to start the journey of getting treatment or advice, please do start with your GP and go from there. Today's guest may not be a doctor, but she could no doubt get a PhD in local government and a master's in receiving misogynistic bullshit from the recesses of the interwebs in her previous roles in local councils. Judene Edgar grew up in the Tasman region and has proudly served the community twice. First through 3 terms as a Tasman district councillor, sexist questions starting early when she was often quizzed how she could dedicate herself to council and be a good mother at the same time. Interesting when they didn't ask the men running with young families the same questions. After being on Tasman Council, a few years later she ran for the Nelson Council, was elected and became deputy mayor. After 1 term though, she has decided not to run again, and exactly why we'll find out, but I believe it has a little to do with the gross shit slung towards politicians, and that the level of discourse has lowered itself to a point that why should anybody put up with that when they're just trying to make cities function better. We met when she attended the New Zealand Improv Festival in Wellington and has since become my number 1 bed of choice when coming to Nelson when I have to find my own accommodation. She has written and directed plays, as a mother of 2 strapping lads, one of whom I employed once to dance like a pirate in a kids' show. She's a lovely, supportive husband, and thankfully, though nearly evacuated recently, her house did not slide down the hill in the recent Nelson floods. I thought I'd get her along given all the noise around the recent local body election. So please welcome ex-deputy mayor, but still fabulous lady with an excellent local body, Judene Edgar. Hello.
Wow, I think we should just stop the show there. I don't think it gets better than that. So look, it's been really lovely being a guest of yours on the show, Penny. Thank you and good night.
Hey, no, we've got many more questions to ask you. Thank you for coming along. And how do you feel? Like it's been, 2 weeks out of the job?
Well, actually, officially only about a week, because we're officially out of the job once the final results come through. There's that weird little limbo period when you are not actually there, wanted, whatever.
And they discontinued your access to the building.
Yes, you can't get in the building. Emails are cut off, and it's sort of, the community don't know who to contact because they don't have new councillors yet, but the old ones have mysteriously don't exist anymore.
Right, okay. Yeah, fun times. Right. So, and have you enjoyed not being in there?
Yes. Yes.
In short, yes. Yes, yeah. I have. Right. So what was it that was putting you off wanting to stay there longer?
Look, in some ways, I think I've always described myself probably more as a governor. And if you think, not a governess, no, not with lots of children, but as an, if you think of who runs boards and who runs community groups, it's someone who is there going, how can I make a difference? How can I inspire and make great change and add value to this? And so I've always seen myself more as a governor than as a politician.
Right.
And I guess part of being a politician, I'm told, is you have to suck it up and take whatever comes your way, because that's why you get the big bucks.
Yeah.
Now, the big bucks when I started on council were $28,000 a year, 33% tax rate, and you had to even supply your own fax machine. So I don't know, that could be big bucks, but often people would say, well, it was more than superannuation, but I did work 40-odd hours a week for that.
Yeah. Also, why are you getting taxed at 33% when you're not supposed to kick into the top tax tier? Do you know what I mean? Was it like a secondary job thing?
No, it's like performing artists, in that you're a contractor. We are not and cannot be employed by council. Yes. Because then you would have a conflict.
So did they take withholding tax of 33%?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
And you don't get super. So unlike central government politicians, there is no Kiwi Saver or scheme. So, when central government politicians leave, they get Air New Zealand flights and they get an annual payment, etc. But I did get a mall voucher after 9 years on Tasman. So, that's similar, isn't it?
Oh, wow. You can get your hair cut at, Clips or something with your more. Jesus Christ. So I just don't even understand why you were getting taxed at 33%. To me, entertainers, we get taxed at 20% with withholding tax.
Yeah.
But that seems to be already going, well, you're pigs at the trough, so we'll take as much as we can, which is all bollocks.
Yeah.
So how much did you get when you were the deputy mayor, if you don't mind me asking? If that's
No, it's all public. So deputy mayor, I was getting 66.
Right, that's significantly better.
Yes. And and it was, 12 odd years later.
Yeah.
However, I did work on average 72 hours a week.
Jesus.
And is 66 with a 33% tax rate, no super, etc. Is that good pay for 72 hours a week? Again, maybe, but probably really not for the level of responsibility you have. Yes. And the fact you're on call reasonably 24/7.
Yes, and people, I just don't understand. I mean, the thing is, I need to be careful. I've certainly said horrible things about certain politicians in the past, but I've tried really hard of late to never make it personal, to never make it about how they look, and to actually not, particularly when I'm engaging with them specifically, not to be a dick, basically. Just don't be a dick, which is if I'm tweeting at someone, I will only get angry or something if they have, or if they've said something immediately inflammatory. But there's just no need to lower the discourse into petty playground sort of language and behavior. And was that what was the ratio of dickhead comments to not dickhead comments and things like that?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, look, I refer to it as a post-Trump world, and some of that might also be wishful thinking because, of course, Trump is still very much around.
Yeah, true.
But I guess it's a post-Trump presidency world since he lost the election.
Yes.
Anywho, so what he enabled, and whether he got to be president or not, what he enabled through his brand of politics was actually, it's really okay to insult and be base and be coarse and have no factual basis to anything you are saying, etc., etc., etc. And so, what you got with this huge upshift in you're a wanker, you're a treacherous dog, you're a pig, da-da-da-da-da.
You got called a treacherous dog?
Yes.
For what?
Well, not for anything I did, but for something one of my colleagues said some of us had done, which was not true, but,
Oh, God. Nobody bothers to fact check, do they? They just fling, including
our colleagues.
And Winston Peters has been saying some, or for decades he's been saying stupid things, let's be honest. Yeah. Yes, and the thing is, and people are so ignorant of the minutiae. I remember staying with you and you had the reading that you had to do, and it was mountainous. How much reading did you have?
Look, I did an agenda. Well, our last council meeting, which went for 3 days, was a 1,700-page agenda. And so that was officially one meeting, and it was 1,700 pages. I have had several 1,000-page agendas when there is community consultation. So you've got all their submissions that you're wading through to, balance all the different points made. And so, I would have all these spreadsheets I'd made up to look at, now there's this point, and now there's these people making these points, and I'll cross-reference it to this and that. And you need a really super good memory, in my opinion, to be able to, because you can go, hang on, that's saying this here. But actually, I remember quite a contrary comment was made on this other page. And
yeah. And do all of the councillors display as much diligence as your good self? Your pause speaks volumes. You couldn't possibly say, but fuck no, I'm taking from that.
Yeah, well, especially when I look across my years on local government, when I left Tasman District Council, and I did stand in Nelson because I shifted to Nelson, so there's, I didn't just get kicked out of Tasman and just tried another one.
Yeah.
Is an elected member on Tasman did say at my farewell, well, who's going to read the agendas now?
Oh, my God.
And he said that out loud with media there. So blessed. So, it's not a secret.
Wow.
But yes, that's a thing too. And I mean, sometimes I thought, well, maybe I was the idiot. Why was I working 40-odd hours a week? Because some would work 8.
Yeah.
For the same pay.
And with the same vote, right?
Yes, all with one vote. And the mayor with one vote. Yeah.
Yes, the mayor with one vote, which Wayne Brown needs to remember.
And decisions are made around the council table, not outside of meetings. Yes.
Not before, during the campaign when you say this is going to happen, when you actually have no sway to make that happen, but yet people vote for you thinking that you do because that's another Trump bullshit sort of situation.
Yeah, that was often my advice for people. People would often ask for advice. Who do we vote for? And it could be, a region where I actually didn't know anyone there. And I'd go, well, one of my rules of thumb, if they say we're going to stop this government legislation or something like that, if they give an absolute, not them, because they do not know their context. If they say we are going to advocate, we will work hard to try and achieve this or advocate for your rights on this or that, yes, they know, if it's dealing with central government, they at least seem to know the context within the environment they're working in.
Yeah. So how do you feel about the future of local body politics, given the terrible turnout, given the, base discourse, etc.? Do you have hope, Judene, or did you just go, fuck it, I'm out of here?
I do have hope, and probably because, you do always see things go in swings and roundabouts. And if you swing too far one way, then there will be a pushback, and we can push back. Look, people often talk about young people aren't turning out, but actually, young people not turning out to vote means pretty much anyone under 65 when it comes to local government elections. When I first stood, I don't know the current stats, but I know when I very first stood in 2007, it was 85% of local government voters were over 65. And so
85%. Wow.
And so it's like, stop blaming, we seem to go, oh, well, where were the 25 and unders? Where were the, it's like, no, where's just anyone under 65?
Yeah, which is not to negate that, there's the thing, I get a bit sick of that too, people saying that, a friend of mine was saying on Facebook that we should stop people voting once they get to the retirement age, which is... Ooh. I know, which is so dismissive of older people. That's just ageism right there, because obviously when I'm 65, I'm still going to be voting in a liberal fashion unless something very drastic changes. Anyway, so I don't think that's the answer, but do you think that changing from purely postal voting is the way forward?
Yes. I had this conversation with my mum just the other day, because she doesn't use anything online, and I mean cell phones through to can't set a digital alarm clock. Some people still have those. But I said, look, it's like your bills. And I pointed to one of the bills on her table and said, there is a range of options. There is, you can do this in person. You could post it. You could go online. I said, that's what's needed, is a range of options. And all the unique identifying factors are already in place. Yeah. So the only change needs to be is those different options. Yeah. Because, look, my children are, can I still call 18 and 23-year-olds? Well, they're still my children.
Yes, anyway, they're still your children.
They don't know about posting.
Right.
It's not a thing.
Right. But did they vote?
Yes.
Good. So they figured out posting.
Yes, but yes and no. So we did it. We all did it at home together, and then I collected up the envelopes and put them in a box at council, since I was going there, because they had drop-off points.
Even though my husband is well aware of posting, I still had to post his, because I was like, get your ass into gear and vote. And he was like, ugh. So then, I did that, and then I posted his as well, which you just go like, oh, for God's sake. But right.
But I know in rural communities, actually, the time frame can actually be so tight for rural communities who are on rural post that if they pretty much don't get their vote in within the first week, it won't make it back in time to be collected. So, for example, if you post mail in Nelson and want it to get to somewhere else in Nelson, it actually goes via Christchurch.
Okay.
Because that's where our post is sorted.
That seems very intelligent, right? Okay, that's because we've, slashed so many jobs. And friends of mine, like my friend Robbie in Chicago, who you probably know, he didn't get his until it was far too late to return. Exactly. So, when people overseas and voting and things like that. Now, because I'm a sucker for getting outraged and stuff, like what's some of the worst things that, unless you don't want to revisit them, but I'm like, what's the worst thing anybody said to you, Judene?
Actually, the worst things that I've had is actually not not necessarily the personal ones, but I guess the ones that make me sad about community. And that is some of the homophobic and racist comments.
Right.
They've been pretty rife these last 3 years.
Really?
Especially racist comments. And I guess they just sort of make me deeply sad that these are the people engaging with us.
Yeah.
And that it's made, we often talk about the silent majority, but it's made them more silent and actually fucking scared to say anything.
Right.
And so the rational voice of everyday people, they will also get their heads chopped off. So, while in some ways you could say, it was okay for me to be called, wanker and, blah, 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 blah. But they will get the same as well if they dare say, oh, we like that decision council made. Oh, no, you don't. No one would dare say, well done, council. Good one, Maori ward. Fantastic idea.
So did you have your first Maori wards recently with that recent big change?
Yes, we did.
And Nelson, some people might say Nelson's quite a white place. What do we say to that?
Yes, so there was comments about whether we should have engaged with the community before making that decision, because we made the decision. We are the leaders of the community, and you make decisions based on what's best for the community. And sometimes there is legal requirements to consult. Other times you consult because it's best practice and you want to sort of get a breadth of views. And other times you go, this is the right decision to make.
Exactly.
And we will make it.
And, because it used to have to go to a referendum, didn't it? And that was just resulting in, like, New Plymouth, that mayor who was driven out of town basically because he wanted to have Māori wards. And it removed that horrendousness. And yes, and often this is what it's like, the homosexual law reform potentially would not have passed if it had been up to a general populace and things like that. So yes, sometimes you just have to make decisions to put you on the right side of history. So anyway, well done on that. So you've just been enjoying your freedom of not reading endless amounts of notes and things.
Yeah, except my new job does require a lot of reading.
Okay, and what is your new job?
So I'm Senior Governance Advisor at the Institute of Directors.
Yes, and what does that mean?
In some ways similar to council in that there's a breadth of topics, but it's looking at what advice do governors need to best govern their organisation. So whether it's stock exchange listed through to small not-for-profits, through to a family trust or a partnership, what do the directors need to support them? What trends are there that they need to be thinking about or looking at? What are some of the sort of hotbed issues? How can we maybe challenge them or get them to think about things differently? How do we support them to value add around their table?
And who pays for that?
Members do.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so there's 10,500 members in the country.
Right.
We also run, I don't, but training courses and provide other consultancy services. So, so membership and fee paying.
It's amazing how many jobs you go, oh, I didn't know about that or that, especially the business world and myself are very far removed from each other, and I'm reasonably happy about that. So, but you are happy in your role of 2 weeks so far?
I am indeed.
Great. Cool. Well, let's jump into the actual point of this. Well, the point of my podcast is to talk to fabulous ladies and trans peoples, but then also find out about their uteruses and ovaries and things like that. So, but my first question that I ask everybody is, what has your relationship with your body been like through your life, and what journey has that been on?
So there's often this thing. People often say, if your child was really good when they were 2, then they'll probably be a terrible teen, and vice versa.
Oh.
And so I sort of sometimes wonder if it applies the same for menopause, because I had really easy periods.
Right.
And so maybe does that mean that I was destined always to have a menopause that was a bit sort of hell on earthy?
Oh.
So, because my periods did come pretty easily. They came frequently, every 3 weeks.
Oh, and that is actually often a sign of a more difficult menopause.
Oh, yay. Okay, good.
Yep.
See, that then did play out.
Yep.
Yeah, so, but then other than that, there was sort of, other than, the general annoyance and the cost, They just came frequently, and that was it.
So no great pain.
Zero pain.
Zero pain.
Yeah.
Wow.
Zero pain, no headaches, just a thing that happened annoyingly and expensively. Expensively when you go every 3 weeks.
Yeah, every 3 weeks you've added that extra one into your life there than most of us.
Yeah. Right. But other than that, I guess I would say I was fairly negligent about my body. I had very much the Kiwi, brush it off. If you ignore it, it will go away kind of attitude to health.
Like what sort of things?
Well, just sort of any aches or pains or whatever.
You wouldn't go to the doctor?
Eventually they all stop.
Jesus Christ. It's like it wasn't cancer, Judene.
I know. So I very much sort of like eschewed diets and dieting, and that's not necessarily because I had this fabulous body, but I had a family history of eating disorders, and so it just became something I didn't want to get into. It also became something that I guess I could also use as an excuse for why I was then overweight, because then I could go, oh yes, but risk factors in the family, so best to be overweight than that. So
yeah.
But I was a reasonably heavy smoker for about 15 years, and that might have helped with some form of natural appetite suppression. But when I fell pregnant with my eldest, I gave up smoking. So
well done.
That was 23 years ago. Haven't taken it up again. But what I did do is then I was pregnant and had just given up smoking. So what would someone maybe do then?
Eat.
Yes, eat. So,
right.
I was over 100 kilos for quite a long time.
Right, okay.
Anyway, so I eventually lost the baby weight. Is it baby weight when the child was about 18 at that point? But anyway.
Well, then you had compounding baby weights because you had 2 babies.
Yes. So anyways, but I lost... And you can guess that I was a little bit over 100 kilos because I lost 45 kilos.
Yeah, wow. And you did that in like one sustained burst, eh?
Yeah, for about...
Over how long?
About 9 months.
Sorry. The negative baby weight.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty much. So, yes.
That's an amazing, and David, your husband, he did the same at the same time,
yes.
Hey?
Yeah, we started it together. His dad got sick and had slightly neglected and ignored his health.
Right.
Not coming back to any previous comments I made at all. And it was his heart. And David, being a typical male, carried the bulk of his weight around his heart. Middle. And I just went, I'm not fucking losing you early. So we're doing this.
Right.
So that was it.
Was he happy with that idea?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I then suddenly lost 5 kilos very quickly, about, a year or so after that, and then bounced back 10 kg.
But how did you lose 45 kilos that people want to know?
I literally it was just boring. All the boring advice that you hope isn't true, which is like, go for a walk every day, eat less, don't snack.
Right.
It was just...
Yeah, you were like, where's my miracle pill that I can take?
Yeah,
but that doesn't exist.
Don't eat chocolate every night, Judene. No, it didn't solve your problem.
Usually that fuckwit at the council can go away.
Yeah, just literally fucking stop, So, yes. So, but yeah, look, over the years I've had broken bones and burst appendix and shingles and 3 sets of measles and miscarriage but I've just sort of still generally ignored my health.
Right. Has that changed lately?
Yes and no. So one of my visits to gynecologists, which I'll get into more later, was suggested I could have a hysterectomy. And I went, no, I'm not going back to Nelson Hospital. They've already tried to kill me twice. Not going for 3rd time's a charm.
Right. What was that about?
Well, see, when I was about 10, I had tonsillectomy and adenoidectomy. And they oopsie-daisy overdosed me on morphine post-op. And they had to revive me. I was unconscious for 5 days. I was in intensive care for a total of 7 days before I was fully regained consciousness.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. So that was the first very solid attempt.
Right. And then when did they try and give it another red hot go?
The last time was actually during the 2019 election campaign. So I'd managed to make it to one community meeting, and then I popped to A&E with these pains that were pretty horrible. Anyway, but sort of woke up, David, I'm just going to pop myself to A&E. I'll be back in a little bit. Anyway, so popped there, and after making sure that it wasn't constipation or anything really embarrassingly minor, no, you need to urgently have a scan. We think it's your appendix. And so urgent turned into pop me on a ward, leave me there, and 12 hours later after I'd arrived in hospital, my appendix burst. And that was excruciating. It made giving birth to an 11-pound baby feel quite minor.
Which one was 11 pounds?
Matthew.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Matthew.
Pirate.
Did they not give you a scan?
Well, a couple of hours. No, they didn't. They booked me for a scan for 4 p.m. And so this was at 2 when it burst. At 4 p.m, they took me to my appointment. I had no blood pressure. I collapsed on the floor. Then they couldn't do the scan. So eventually around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, they did the operation. But, of course, by that stage, all the infection was spread everywhere and, and then, we had to go back in again a few days later and da-da-da-da-da. All was fun.
But you still got elected, so well done.
I just did.
Did you play the sympathy vote?
No. Well, I was really nervous because, it was like I'm sick so I can't make the community meetings, but I'm not so sick that you shouldn't vote for me. Because it's a fine line. They don't want to
fine line, yeah.
They don't want to think, oh, well, she's not going to be worth voting for. Oh, she can't even turn up to a simple meeting,
Because I'm in hospital.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, well, so obviously this was to do with your menopause. So then how did your menopause start to manifest in yourself?
Okay. So my very first symptom was actually watery eyes. And by watery, I mean like literally streaming uncontrollably. And that started 6 years ago. Now, as a glasses wearer, I get an annual check and I went to see my optometrist and, they do the anything changed with your eyes. And I said, oh, yes, keep getting this all the time. And they sort of ever so casually went, oh, yes, well, you get that with menopause. And I tried to do the poker face. And, of course, my inner monologue is going, what the fuck? No, I'm 47. What? And I felt very insulted that they would say it like, well, of course you would know, and of course you're old enough. So basically I then went home and Googled, as you do, Dr. Google. And so, yes, Dr. Google told me that, yes, your eyes will water because they're drying up, the great drying up that is menopause. Yay.
The desiccation. Yeah. Right. Okay. I don't think I've talked to anybody else with that. Well, this is the thing. So many different symptoms with everybody. Yeah. Right. So that started happening. So your water was leaving your body through your eyes.
Yeah. And I mean, that was literally my only symptom for about a solid year before, the hot flushes and the temperature swings and the mood swings and all those other fun things came in.
And so were they quite vociferous, shall we say?
The hot flushes haven't been, well, yes and no. They haven't been as hot as other people's, but they come with a massive side of uncontrollable shakes and plunging blood pressure.
Oh, fuck. Yeah. Right. And how long does that last for?
Look, it can last for up to about half an hour.
Oof, and that's not really a flush, is it? That's like a hot sustain.
Yeah.
A hot sustain.
So it can, and then I'll be quite exhausted afterwards.
And how often did they happen in a day?
No, I get one really decent one in a day.
But one a day is a lot. Right.
But I mean, look, bless, Matthew, my 18-year-old, he knows exactly everything I need to help me.
Aww,
if I wasn't at home, it got a bit more problematic. However, because then they were stuck with me there because I couldn't drive home. But,
right. So you couldn't drive for quite a while afterwards?
No. So
could you drive, did you drive at all during this time?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was just in that half an hour and then for maybe half an hour afterwards, it wasn't really safe to drive.
So did you faint ever?
Oh, well, I did because I had my period. So I've always had anemia. People always used to go, oh, you just need to eat a steak and you'll be right. And And I used to actually come back at them with, oh, all I need is menopause. Because, that was going to be some light little funny thing. Because, too many American sitcoms. And anyway, so not only did menopause, and of course I'm 6 years in and I'm still actually not at the 1 year post and nowhere near it. I'm at least 11 and a half months out from being, at the official menopause stage.
And are your periods still every 3 weeks, or have they gone haywire?
Oh, well, they started with becoming super, super thick, like huge clots and excruciating pain. And the frequency was, every single day for 9 months.
Oh, what was this with you in 9 months?
Yeah,
out every single day for 9 months.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So,
right.
Yeah, so that was the key thing. I actually finally, after that going on and on and on, my normal ethos of ignore it goes away, I decided wasn't working for me.
Too right, mate.
Look at me,
Too right.
Look at me learning. Yay!
So you went to your GP?
So I went to my GP. So look, got a Mirena inserted, tried tranexamic acid, which is basically is meant to stop heavy bleeding.
Right.
They didn't work. So then I had my first gynecologist appointment, which was singularly, let's use the word disappointing, and that would be super polite of me to call it disappointing.
Yes. Right. I feel that you're underestimating the impact.
Yes.
And is that when they said they wanted to do a hysterectomy?
Yes. Well, it went with, why are you here? Hadn't read any of the notes. Why are you taking iron tablets? Stop those. Oh, by the way.
Should you be stopping those?
No, I really shouldn't have been.
Yes,
I chose to ignore his advice. My doctor was quite glad I chose to ignore his advice because I was also needing iron infusions on top of the iron tablets. So I should have ignored his advice.
Jesus. Yes.
We also went, by the way, you've got diffuse adenomyosis, which is a thickening of the lining of the uterus. So that will also help with increasing the pain, and probably just have a hysterectomy, to which I went, no, I'm not going back to Nelson Hospital. But also I didn't really feel he'd bothered to really, since he hadn't read my notes, I really didn't think he knew much about me as a patient. And
so was there a talk of is it an ablation?
Yeah, I actually asked about an ablation because one of my sisters had one. And so here's the crunch is when I went back to my doctor and, threw my arms up in the air and labelled him a bit.
Oh, good.
Yep. And told her under no uncertain terms what I thought of him and his advice. We got a referral back, and of course, referral system, blah, blah, blah. So went back, saw this other gynecologist who very early on said, well, you could have an endometrial ablation, to which I just hit the roof and went, the last one said that would make things worse. And gave her a long rant about what was wrong with the last gynecologist as well.
Right, and did you have that?
No, because by that stage, we were now so far down the track that it had now turned into the occasional weird bit of blood that just pops up every now and then at any random nature. It's never enough to need more than a pad, and so, we just now are back to ignoring it and carrying on.
So you basically are through that, because flooding is, even though 9 months constant is pretty nuts, but that is quite a common occurrence, I think. Mine certainly got thicker for a while and heavier. I call it double plugging to go to sleep, things like that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to be doing that anymore. So I feel like maybe that's changed a little.
Yeah.
And I used to call my period Mike Hosking because it went on and on and on and on and on and on. But it seems that Mike Hosking has shut up of late, which I wish the real life one would do. But anyway, so it's interesting how that all changes. Yeah, that's frustrating for you. But now, so you didn't really know anything about menopause before all of this, eh? You just thought your period stopped and it would be great.
Yeah, and very much what I knew was what American sitcoms had taught me, and most of that was that it was a joke.
Yeah.
You women stood
especially older ladies.
Yep, and they stood in front of an open fridge, they got grumpy, but I think the key take-home message is that it all finished in one episode.
Yeah. Not 6 fucking years, mate.
Well, actually, it is 7 years on average. Now, when you take into account some women basically get no symptoms, and some women have symptoms their entire life. So, because I'm going, because, it was like 3.5 years on average before your period stopped, and then symptoms for about another 4 years afterwards. And I go, well, I'm 6 years in. It'll be at least another 1 before my period has stopped. And that's assuming it suddenly stops today. So, yeah, I'm going to be at least 11 odd years of symptoms. And that's
Right.
best case scenario now.
Did you talk to your mother about hers?
No. Look, I left home when I was 16. Mum was 42. She hadn't even talked to me about periods at that stage. And yes, I was having my period by 16.
Right, yes.
Yeah, so probably the trauma of my first period still resonates.
Did you know what it was?
Oh, I did, because I've got 3 older sisters, but it was only Mum and I living at home, though, at this stage.
Right.
And so I had stolen some of her applicator tampons. Now, I think the instructions for applicator tampons are on the box, which I didn't have, and I just had the white wrapping. And it took me way too long to realize which bits stayed inserted and which bits didn't. Oh, yes. And I'm sharing this because who knows? I don't even know if they exist anymore, but,
Cardboard is very, very absorbent. Yes. Well,
yes.
There was that.
And not at all uncomfortable.
No, you had the little piece of paper inside the Tampax.
No,
it
didn't.
used to tell you about that.
Well, inside the box, not inside.
Yeah, inside the box.
Yeah, I didn't have the box.
Yeah.
I just had to steal a couple off Mum.
Right.
And was in
the thing about them, though, that pamphlet always talked about toxic shock syndrome, and it was like terrifying. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Because I only ever used those. I never used pads ever. I went straight to Tampax, and I've hated pads ever since. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I never left the house, so, it just, yes.
Oh, okay. Like going, wait a minute, this is very strange.
Yeah, this doesn't
I've got a toilet roll in my fanny. What's going on?
This doesn't quite feel right. Yeah, there's something wrong. And I think it took me quite a few packet wrappings were all around me until, one finally, here we go.
Hallelujah, there we go.
And there wasn't
now
Google
I can go
back then. Come on.
No. And you're like, now I can go swimming and bike riding and all those fun
yes,
things.
all those things I'd never been able to do before, yes.
So did your sisters tell you about their menopause?
No. We've all been quite sort of spread in different places, so yeah.
And were they similar?
I don't know.
Oh, you still haven't talked to them about it?
No, and which is a little weird and ironic because I literally talk to anyone and everyone about menopause.
Good.
And a friend of mine just, bumped into her in Kmart, and I can't remember what we were talking about, and she mentioned her eyes, and I'm like, oh yes, well, let me tell you about this, and she was probably having the same thing, and so. For me, I just, there's barely a time where menopause isn't appropriate to come up in the conversation, I find.
Yep. And, and this is it because you were so taken, you had no idea, etc. And this is what this podcast is all about and everything too. Right. So then you had flashes of anger and things. And how did the lads in your life cope with all of that?
Well, yes. I asked my husband about it on Sunday in sort of preparation and said, how long did those mood swings last for? And he laughed a lot at the thought of calling them mood swings because they really were sort of screaming and raging.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
They were fairly full on.
Right.
So, eternally grateful that all 3 of my men still live in this house. So I'm either going, I wasn't as bad as I think I was, or the really good, and I think it could be the latter and not the former.
Right. What would set you off? Do you remember?
Some of it I actually think is by virtue of my role, and look at me blaming. But
it's those fuckers calling you a treacherous dog.
No, I think it was about having to keep your shit together all day and keep your game face on and be professional and be everything for everyone else, and then you get home and you relax. And then one minor infraction of a nothingness, and it turns into the only thing that can come out is a big slew of swear words, which, can come out of my mouth normally anyway. But, there was lots of anger and frothing and red face that came with it.
And has that stopped now?
Yes. What
Great.
Look, interestingly, you could go, what maybe would have come straight after that was an apology, perhaps. That's not actually what happened. What came straight after was a lecture, as you will, is my boys would get lectures on hormones, menopause, and why you should never undermine or belittle women for any issues to do with periods, hormones, menopause, etc. Because as I would say, this shit is outside of my control. There would be other words as well. And so they know quite a lot about menopause.
And do you think that it affected your working life, or did you manage to keep it under control at work?
I generally managed to keep it under control at work. Look, I did get dizzy and faint and did faint occasionally, popped out of the room quietly, passed out quietly,
Jesus
as
Christ.
you do.
Fuck.
Probably the biggest hit I had, which it affected my inner monologue more, and that was my thinning here. And that hit my confidence, which hits the inner monologue. And, look, my hair has always been really thin and wispy, and I've got 3 older sisters who had long, thick hair down to their asses, and it just felt like the gene pool ran out.
The keratin ran out.
Yeah. And so, Sure enough, with menopause, it's like, oh, what symptom am I going to get? Oh, goody, hair thinning. Because, yeah, great.
Right.
And so, I've got quite decent, what do you call them?
Male pattern baldness.
Yeah, basically, yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, basically. And
I'm laughing at you. Ha. Does that help?
Yeah.
Does that help?
It does. I feel so much better when people laugh at me. Oh, sorry, with me, at me. So I remember the first time talking to a hairdresser in hushed whispers in case any other customer heard me. And, trying to get any shampoo, any haircut, anything that would help this problem.
Yeah.
Now, I then had a hiccup in the middle of all of that is because I found a really good hairdresser, and then, and all due deference to hairdressers, she started talking to me. Now, okay, so
You don't like that?
Well, traditionally I like to have a bit of me time because I have a lot of meetings and so it used to be me time, and this new hairdresser started talking a lot. But then she started talking about things like tunnels under the world and how hard done by Trump was and how there was a conspiracy against Trump and Trump. And it's like,
dear.
I can't give you my money.
No.
I have to leave you. And
Yes.
so then I had about 18 months of really manky haircuts, which really didn't help me at all. And it was sort of every time I'd look in the mirror and look at the sad haircut and, oh, good, and there I am in the paper again with that non-hairstyle, yay, and go, me and my principals can't go back to the good hairdresser.
Which is good.
But eventually, because of COVID and the fact that, vaccines were injecting people with microchips and blah, 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 she left the industry.
Yes.
And so I now have a good hairdresser. Feel free to compliment me on my hair at this point.
I used to, before I met Matt, my longest relationship had been with my hairdresser. I had one called One-Lup Pornovich for a while who was Croatian Thai, and he was very beautiful and straight, quite unusual. And now I've had one for a long time too who is not straight and is delightful and wonderful at Kokomo hairstylists. But
Well, see, my other special relationship now is, of course, the inverse that you get to the thinning hair is the hair that grows where it shouldn't grow. So my other special relationship, other than my hairdresser, is my electrolyst, who I love deeply.
So and they love you deeply with little electrical tingles. Where do you get, are you willing to share?
Yeah. So moustache, chin, and big toes.
Big toes?
Big toes.
You get electrolysis on your big toes. You don't just want to shave them off or anything.
I used to pluck them, but they're really thick and coarse.
Right.
And it really hurts like a mother. It really does. And I've Googled to work out that I'm not a wuss and that it's basically because you're pretty much there's just bone underneath. And so it is going to hurt. And so, I try not to kick her in the face.
How often? But don't you stop getting that? Doesn't that?
Well, as it slowly stops growing, yes. So the ones on my chin have stopped. Yay! My moustache is pretty good. That doesn't exist. I only ever had. I mean, to be honest, it was like 6 thick black coarse hairs. Now, for someone with very pale skin and very fair hair, thick black coarse hairs, it felt like a full beard, but probably. If you were further than a couple of inches from my face, you probably didn't see them. But I saw them and I felt them. So, people say do things for yourself. Well, I was doing it for me because people weren't generally that much up in my face to see them.
Yeah, well, I have, tweezers relationship now with just the one. But, I can imagine you were like, well, they're not casting for hobbits anytime soon, so let's get rid of these hairy toes.
That's it, yeah. And I don't even overly wear sandals, but again, it's like, hey, if you can get rid of them and I don't have to see them, yay.
Yeah. So did you ever think about HRT or things like that?
Look, yes and no. People offered and suggested various things, but to be honest, we have to circle back to this. I'm a bit of a bloke, and if you can ignore things, you're just
this because do you think you've got anything in the back of your head about that WHI study that HRT might be dangerous?
No, I literally don't. I just sort of have, if I can go through it, then I do. Woohoo!
Okay.
And I take the medication that's absolutely needed for me.
Wow.
Because I often go, but if you take too much medication when you're younger, you've got nowhere to go when you get older. Anyway.
I don't know if that's entirely true.
Oh, no, neither do I.
Yes.
Right,
okay.
It's just what's in my brain.
And so were you having brain fog and things like that?
No, not until COVID.
That's good. Oh, then you got, and has that gone away?
So we are 2 months post-COVID, and it only happens occasionally now. And it's quite, it's a fascinating brain fog because I didn't have it when I was really sick for the first week, but the second week, and it's, you talk about things being on the tip of your tongue. No, they weren't on the tip of my tongue. They were nowhere. They did not exist. The words didn't exist. I'm mid-sentence and bang, I have no idea what I'm saying or what question I'm answering. It's just gone. It's blank.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I'm 2 months post-COVID and it only happens occasionally now.
Right. Okay. Well, fingers crossed that goes. I've been very fortunate with, I went to hospital. I was going to say jail. I went to hospital for a day, but I've been no real effect. So I feel very lucky. I was talking to a friend of mine today who's developed epilepsy.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just this crazy, and Janine Crossan a couple of weeks ago, her breast implants reacted to COVID, so she's had to have them taken out.
Wow.
So it's like, COVID is bonkers.
Oh, my 23-year-old son had basically never been sick in his life, never. No colds, no flus. Every 3 years the medical centre would ring and go, does he still exist? Say, yes, he just doesn't get sick. And he got COVID. And then within about 6 weeks or so, he had a really bad cold.
Yeah, right.
And so, you go someone who never in his life, and okay, having a really bad cold's not the end of the world, but you just see fit, young, healthy people who had never been sick. Now he's getting sick.
Yeah. I got a cough not that long after. So, it is interesting. So we'll see what happens from here. Right. So that's what so it obviously the things that you're experiencing right now aren't debilitating enough for you to consider HRT.
No.
Yeah. So you're just dealing with it.
Yeah. I take my iron tablets and I take just general dietary supplements.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you worry at all as someone who went to a lot of effort to lose a lot of weight about things? I'm not saying you should, but I just know that our brains are wired in certain ways. Do you worry about the weight gain sort of aspect?
Look, I'm not happy with with the shape change because that's happened. So even though my weight stayed the same, my shape changed, and I'd always had a waist, and now I don't have a waist. And I think the thing that sort of pisses me off nearly more about that is, of course, a few years ago, I had bought a whole bunch of new second-hand clothes because I had new clothing guilt because of the environmental impacts. But I had still spent good money on a new wardrobe because I had lost, from a size,
45 kilos.
Yeah, so from, my clothes were sort of a 18 to 22 and now they're a 12, 14.
Yeah.
So I really couldn't wear anything I used to wear. And so, of course, now some of those lovely clothes don't fit me because they do fit me, but my shape has changed and they now look gross on me.
Nikki Pellegrino said that. She said it's like the fat had a party in her body and then forgot to go home. Right, okay. Yeah. And it's so, and we have that conditioning about, even though you obviously did that for your health, and that's great that you did that absolutely for that. And are you doing things like weight-bearing exercise and things?
No.
Okay.
I must admit, after my massive effort 4 or 5 years ago, I'm pretty slack these days.
Right.
But I have great intentions to get back out walking. You've heard it here first.
Yeah. Yes. Because you used to walk, when I would stay, you would walk every day.
Yeah. And look, to be honest, council just got so manic and frantic that I was either literally working
Yeah.
And I'd be on my keyboard until 11, 12 at night. Then I'd watch an hour of RuPaul Drag Race and then go to bed, 1:30. And that was my life.
I introduced you to that, didn't I?
Yes. I went and saw Bianca Del Rio recently in Christchurch.
Was it hilarious?
I loved it ever so much. I did get read.
Oh, you got read to filth, did you, Judene?
Yes, the badge of honour got read by Bianca.
The library is open. Look at that. That's cool. People will be like, what are they talking about? Okay, well, that makes sense. Well, weight-bearing exercise is really good once you're in menopause to help with your bone density.
Yeah.
So start doing that.
Okay, hit it here first.
Okay. Yes, you heard it there first. Right. So, and your boys have learned a lot about it. Do you have friends that you talk about it with at all?
Yeah, well, I think that's nearly one of the, sort of the nice parts about menopause, because we have to find some form of weird nice part, and that is a bit of a sisterhood of people where we can talk about anything and everything. And I think by having those really open menopause conversations, they lend themselves to really open conversations about anything. And, you might have picked up from my ignore it, it'll go away. I used to, despite the psychology degree, whereupon I have great advice for everyone else's problems, my advice for myself was usually ignore it, it will go away. And so, but now I can be really open to these people because it's just taught me to be more open about things.
Right. So that's the positive that you would take from menopause.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Yeah. I mean, you need to get things checked out though, because they might be more nefarious. It's funny, like I get everything checked out immediately. So then I spend a bit on tests and stuff, but it's just that peace of mind for me to know that it isn't anything more serious.
I think I still have this inherent mistrust of the medical system, and that could be from when they,
tried to kill you twice.
To kill me.
Yes.
And as a little child, that has an impact.
Yes.
But
fuck yeah, that'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I did see a specialist recently about something that's been hanging on for ages, this weird sore throat from pre-COVID that's gone on for like a year or so. And, after keeping me waiting an hour or so, again, you go, oh, why are you here? Hadn't read the notes, So I don't know. I still go, well, when I do follow up, Yeah, I was reading something not long ago about a woman who, when she takes her son to the doctor who's got multiple issues, when she takes him, she gets very much brushed off. If hubby comes along as well, they get this whole different level of care.
Wow.
And so I do wonder how much of it is how women are treated in the medical system. Because I do remember the first time I went to a doctor about menopause, the doctor, who albeit was a woman, although she was, significantly younger and, that long distance runner build, basically said, exercise will fix everything.
Yeah, wow.
I did say, no, it doesn't. Doesn't fix my anemia, doesn't fix some of these issues, but thank you for that. And that was her entire advice. Exercise.
She wouldn't have been taught properly either, though. That's the problem.
Oh, exactly. Because the normal medical model is based on a male body. And then there's this weird aberration called females.
Yes, exactly, which they didn't want to look into because the hormones would make it all too confusing.
Yes.
Yeah, my friend who was trained in the 90s said she got shit all menopause training, and she's only gotten interested in it more as she is in it, and she is now on HRT.
Yeah.
And so she brings that. She said that a lot of the time you, as a GP, your clients are often a similar age to you, which I found interesting. I don't know, but mine is in her 50s. So, how old are you, Judene?
53, 54 in November. There's me not knowing my birthday.
Oh, right. Oh, you're not far away. Sidebar. Did you find, do you think that there will be less women currently going for local government because they get a more gendered sort of attack?
Oh, absolutely. I want to see the stats of how many people stood, how many people got in, because here in Nelson, we went down from 7 women, 6 men to 11 men, 2 women.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, and I did notice that. When I was looking around the country and looking at who to vote for, it definitely felt like there was a paucity of women.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's because you think that because you get so much, you just, I mean, you get called sluts and, and all this sort of shit that's got nothing to do with anything.
And, of course, until very recently when they changed the legislation, when we campaigned, we had to put our home address on our campaign posters. Yeah. And that's only just changed. But, I mean, you can Google my old campaign stuff and still see there's my home address, etc. loud
which
and
is
proud.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, bullshit. I'm glad that they've changed that then. I didn't realize they had actually changed that.
Yes.
So that is great. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk to around menopause at all?
No.
No, great. So did you have a fun fact for us? An out of the box fun
I've got
fact?
a weird little, I don't know how fun it is.
I know. I feel like that's a misleading title. A fact. A weird / fun / annoying / fucked fact. Whatever. Yep.
Okay, so the fun fact that I found out on was that during the 1800s and early 1900s, treatments varied from the gruesome to the downright dangerous to the weird.
Mm-hmm.
So mustard hip baths, electric therapy, opium, a vaginal plug and iced injections on the removal,
right.
the filtered juice of guinea pig ovaries.
I know the website that you've been reading from.
Oh, excellent.
Yes,
arsenic.
Yes.
Thyroid gland extraction, orgasm, and then, of course, what goes with that list is golf.
Yes, I knew golf is the one that is just like, what the fuck? Yes, Samina gave us those ones a while ago, but they are worth revisiting because what the fuck? Yeah, golf.
Yeah. So I guess my key take-home message, and it's the same one I gave to my family in part of my lectures, is menopause happens to 50% of the population. It's not a fucking secret, and it shouldn't be. So talk about it.
Amen, sister. Yeah, there we go. And that's what we've been doing. So hooray. And you are coming to Showy Ovaries live on Friday.
I am so coming to Showy Ovaries.
Which is very exciting. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It is Tuesday now. It's World Menopause Day right now. So we were talking about this on World Menopause Day.
Excellent.
And this one's coming out the Monday after we Showy Ovaries live together. Yep. So I look forward to that. And I look forward to seeing you and coming to Nelson, which is so supportive of the arts. Enjoy that. And thank you for your service on the political situations. I'm glad that you've gotten out of that toxic space. I'm just sad that that's what it's become, because we need people who are passionate about making a difference, but you get so mired in the minutiae of the governance. Like I was reading that you were like, you'd achieve great things around emissions, but who's talked about that?
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about it. We've talked about other emissions.
Yes.
But anyway, well, thank you very much, my love, and I'll see you on Friday.
Will do. Thank you, Penny.
So that was the fabulous Judene Edgar, whose jubilation at being released from the bondage of agendas is palpable. It is really disturbing to me that participating in running our cities better is so fraught with hatred, and how everyone is so angry all the time and has no sense of the work that they put in and just thinks that they're all assholes, a lack of empathy, etc. So that her relief in leaving the job is so obvious when we need people like her who are committed and also women. It's just shit. But anyway, it was great that she wanted to share that with us and that she came along to see Showy Ovaries live in the Nelson Festival this past Friday night, which was just the best time. It was possibly in peril and my flight was cancelled and the Air New Zealand rebooking website is just bullshit. But I managed to get there, which was lucky because some other actual shows were postponed because the people couldn't get to Nelson, so I was lucky. But so many women and actually quite a few men, happily, surprisingly, but happily, all sharing, laughing, learning and bonding over our bodies and the shit and wonderful things that can happen to them, as well as the joys and benefits of menopause. So thanks to Nikki Pellegrino and Nikki Bazant for being ace, and to the festival and to Kerry Sunderland for programming it. I'm going to edit the audio soon and hopefully we'll have it up next Monday as my lucky number 60 podcast, which will also be the last in season 2, because I'm not quite sure. I have a theatre show to write and it may surprise you that this takes a lot of time putting all this stuff together, and Mama's got to do some work that actually makes money. But Showy Ovaries is still going and it will still go in some way. I think I might actually pivot into just women and their bodies in general, because I feel that we've covered menopause quite heavily. But still, Showy Ovaries Live is coming to the Hamilton Gardens Festival next year, and I definitely plan to pick up the microphone again, and I'm sure you'll all be desperate to know what is happening with VNN Vulva News Network in 2023. But till next week, thanks to my patrons, thanks to Judene, thanks for you all for listening. Please do like my social media pages and book your tickets to Olive Copperbottom in Wellington at Circa Theatre, and stay juicy, everybody. Ka kite.